I'm 34 and I've been married to my husband Paul for 5 years. He has a daughter, Sophie, who's 14 now, from a previous relationship. I met her when she was 8, shy, quiet, but polite. I never tried to replace her mom, just wanted to be someone she could count on. For years, I thought things between us were decent. Not perfect, but decent. I don't have kids of my own, and I honestly didn't expect to be thrown into parenting like this. But I've tried. I've been to every school play, every parent-teacher meeting, every orthodontist appointment. I drive her to soccer practice. I cook meals she likes. I've been there. That's the part that's eating me alive right now. Because 3 days ago, I found something that completely shattered how I saw our relationship. And now, I can't look at either of them the same way again. It started when I was cleaning Sophie's room. Normally, I wouldn't go through her things. I respect her privacy. But she had spilled water on her carpet the night before and forgot about it, so I went in to check if it needed to be dried. While moving her backpack off the floor, a notebook fell out. It looked like one of those cute patterned journals. I thought it was for school at first, until I saw the cover. In black marker, it said, "People I hate, and why." Something in my gut told me to open it. I wish I hadn't. It wasn't a diary. It was a full-on burn book, like something out of Mean Girls. Pages and pages of insults, doodles, and lists about people she knew. A few kids from school, a teacher she didn't like. And then there were 5 full pages about me. I sat down on her bed and just stared at the words. I was the fake mom who's always trying too hard. A loser who thinks being nice means people will like her. Ugly. Pathetic. Trying to steal my dad from my real mom. The stuff she wrote. It was brutal. She made fun of my voice, my hair, my cooking, even the way I laugh. There was a drawing of me with devil horns, and a speech bubble that said, "Let's all hold hands and talk about our feelings," in all caps. It would have been kind of funny if it didn't feel like a punch to the gut. But the worst part? She wrote that she wished I'd die, that if I got hit by a bus, at least dinner wouldn't be vegan. I don't even cook vegan food. I just don't eat red meat. But that wasn't the point. It wasn't about dinner. It was about the fact that she hates me. Not annoyed, not upset, hates. And the kicker? On the very last page, in bright red pen, she wrote, "Dad said not to let her see this, so keep it hidden. Duh." That sentence changed everything, because it means Paul knew. He knew this book existed. He knew what she was writing about me. And he told her to hide it, not to stop, not to apologize, but to just make sure I didn't see it. My hands were shaking. I put the book back exactly how I found it, walked out of her room, and sat in the bathroom for over an hour, just trying to breathe. I didn't know if I should scream or cry or confront them both on the spot. I felt stupid. I felt humiliated. I felt like I was just some stranger living in their house, like I'd been completely blind to what was really going on. And the fact that Paul hid it from me, that made me feel like I'd been betrayed twice. I didn't say anything that night. Not to Paul. Not to Sophie. I didn't even come out of the bathroom until long after everyone had gone to bed. I just sat there, numb, staring at the tile floor like it could somehow tell me what to do. The next morning, I woke up early, earlier than usual, and made breakfast like I always do. Paul came into the kitchen yawning, kissed me on the cheek, like nothing was wrong, like our marriage hadn't just been set on fire the day before. That was the moment I knew I couldn't pretend forever. I didn't want to be the kind of person who just swallows pain to keep the peace. So I asked him a simple question. I said, "Did Sophie ever write anything about me that you thought was concerning?" At first he looked confused, or maybe just pretending to be. Then he gave a half shrug and said, "Kids sometimes vent, that it doesn't mean anything, that teens get dramatic." I asked him again, more direct this time. "Did she ever show you a notebook?" That's when he froze. Just for a second, but I saw it. That flicker of panic. He tried to recover quickly, said something like, "Oh, that thing? Yeah, she showed me a page once. It was silly stuff. I didn't think it was serious." And that was it. The first real lie. I called him out. I told him I'd seen it. The whole thing. Every page. Every word. I'll never forget how his face changed. The color drained from it. He didn't even try to deny it. Just sat there, blinking, like he was trying to figure out which version of the truth would make him look less awful. Then he said, "She didn't mean it. You know she's been struggling." That's the excuse. That's what he fell back on. He said Sophie was going through a hard time, that she's been stressed about school, friends, puberty, all the usual teenage stuff. He tried to frame it like this was just a phase, a harmless way for her to blow off steam. But here's the thing. He knew. He saw what she wrote about me, about wishing I'd die, and instead of talking to her about it, he told her to hide it from me. That's not protecting a kid. That's covering for cruelty. I asked him, point blank, why he didn't come to me, why he didn't tell her it was wrong, why he didn't defend me, not even once. And his answer? I didn't want to make things worse. I laughed. I actually laughed, because how could it get worse than your own stepdaughter fantasizing about your death while your husband pretends it's not happening? The conversation went downhill from there. He got defensive, said I was overreacting, said I was making a big deal out of a dumb notebook. But it's not dumb. It's how she really feels. It's what she says when she doesn't think anyone's watching. And Paul knew about it, and protected her, not me. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because he told me to, but because I couldn't stand to lie next to someone who let me be hated in silence. I don't know what's going to happen next. I haven't told anyone, not my mom, not my friends. I'm just sitting with it right now, with the hurt, with the betrayal, with the realization that maybe, just maybe, I've spent 5 years in a house where I was never truly wanted, and that's a feeling I wouldn't wish on anyone. I wasn't planning to confront Sophie. At first, I thought it wasn't worth it, that no good would come from cornering a 14-year-old with her own words. She clearly didn't respect me, and forcing some fake apology out of her wouldn't fix anything. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized I couldn't live under the same roof, pretending everything was okay while she felt that kind of hate toward me. I needed to say something, not to punish her, but because I needed to know if there was any part of this that could be salvaged. So I waited until Paul left to run errands. I asked Sophie to sit with me in the living room. No big speech, no scolding tone, just me and her. I told her I'd found the notebook. She didn't say anything. No denial, no excuses. Just stared at me, expression flat, eyes a little wide. I said I wasn't mad, just hurt, deeply. That reading what she wrote made me question everything I thought we'd built over the years. And then I asked the hardest question I've ever had to ask a child. Do you really hate me that much? She stayed quiet for a while. Then with a shrug said, I don't know. That answer cracked something inside me. I don't know is worse than yes. It's apathetic. Like she hadn't even considered what it meant to say those things. Like my feelings were just background noise in the life she was living. Eventually, she said she was sorry. But it didn't sound like regret. It sounded like obligation. She said she was just venting, that she thought the notebook was private, that she never meant for me to read it. I asked her if she understood what it meant when she wrote that she wished I'd die, that she hoped I'd get hit by a bus. Did she understand the weight of those words? She didn't answer. I pressed on. I told her I'd never tried to replace her mom, that all I ever wanted was to be someone she could trust, that I loved her, even when she slammed doors or ignored me or rolled her eyes during dinner. Still nothing. Eventually, she said, I just miss how things were before. Before me. That hit like a freight train. She didn't say it with cruelty, just honesty. I didn't ask for you, she added. You just showed up. It's true. I did just show up. And even though Paul and I tried to make it as smooth as possible, therapy, family dinners, open conversations, I guess it never really mattered to her. Maybe she saw me as an intruder all along. But here's the part that really broke me. Right before she got up to leave, she turned around and said, Dad said you'd overreact. Just like that. Like the final piece of the puzzle snapping into place. Paul didn't just ignore what she wrote. He dismissed me behind my back. He knew it would hurt me. And instead of helping his daughter grow from it, he minimized it. Told her I was too sensitive. Turned me into the problem. That's the moment everything in my chest went cold. Because if a 14-year-old is writing hate-filled pages about me, and her father is brushing it off like I should just take it. Then I'm not part of this family. I'm a placeholder, a prop, a woman who makes dinner and folds laundry and shows up to school events, but who doesn't matter when it really counts. And the worst part? I let that happen. For years, I let myself believe that being patient and kind would earn me a place in their hearts. But now I'm realizing maybe I was just an outsider playing pretend in a home that was never truly mine. When Paul got home later that evening, I didn't even wait for him to take his shoes off. I asked him, calmly but directly, "Did you tell Sophie I'd overreact if I found the notebook?" He froze for half a second, then gave me the same look he always does when he knows he's screwed up, but doesn't want to say the words out loud. He rubbed the back of his neck and mumbled something about not wanting her to panic, that he was just trying to keep things peaceful. Peaceful. That word felt like a slap in the face. Because what he meant was, he didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to parent. He didn't want to discipline. He didn't want to stand between me and Sophie because doing that might make him uncomfortable. So instead, he chose to stand behind her and let me take the hit alone. I told him everything, that I'd read all of it, that I'd spoken to her, that her words weren't just typical teenage moodiness, they were targeted, specific, and cruel, and that the fact he not only knew about them, but actively chose to protect her from the consequences, told me everything I needed to know about where I stood in this family. He didn't try to deny it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't get emotional. He just kept repeating the same thing over and over. She's just a kid. She's struggling. I asked him if I wasn't allowed to struggle. If being an adult meant I was supposed to silently absorb all the emotional abuse thrown my way. I asked him when exactly my feelings became less important than keeping the peace with a teenager who wished I'd die. And then I asked the question I'd been holding back since the moment I read that sentence in red pen. Why didn't you defend me? He didn't answer. Not really. He just looked down and said, I didn't want to lose her. And there it was. Not, I love you. Not, I thought I was protecting both of you. Not even, I didn't know what to do. Just fear. He was afraid that if he pushed back, if he parented, Sophie would turn on him too. And he wasn't willing to risk that. So instead, he handed me the role of emotional punching bag and stood quietly in the background, hoping it would all blow over. But it didn't blow over. It festered. And now it's here, at the center of our marriage, rotting everything from the inside out. I told him I needed space, that I was going to stay with my sister for a few days. I didn't pack much, just enough for the week. He didn't protest. He didn't ask me to stay. He didn't say, let's fix this. He just nodded. That silence was louder than anything he could have said. I got to my sister's place late that night, and the second she opened the door, I broke. I didn't even mean to cry. I thought I was all cried out. Thought the hurt had calcified into something cold and solid. But standing in her doorway, suitcase in one hand, shame in the other, it all cracked open. I cried like I was grieving something, and maybe I was. Maybe I am. She didn't ask questions right away. She just hugged me, pulled me inside, and made tea. That's her way. Always calm first, fire later. When I finally told her everything, the notebook, Sophie's words, Paul's silence, she didn't say, I'm sorry. She didn't sugarcoat it. She said, that man doesn't love you the way you deserve to be loved. And for the first time, I didn't argue. She reminded me of things I'd forgotten. The way Paul never stood up for me when his mom made passive-aggressive comments about us not having kids. How he always joked about me being too sensitive, especially when I brought up anything that made him uncomfortable. How often I deferred to him, let things slide, played peacemaker. She said, you've been swallowing your own voice for years just to keep that man comfortable. And she was right. I started thinking back, not just about Sophie, but everything. The small cuts, the slow erosion of boundaries, the way I slowly became smaller in my own home, until I wasn't really in it anymore. I was just managing it. When I first married Paul, I thought love meant being flexible, being patient, being the kind of partner who doesn't give up when things get hard. But now I'm realizing there's a difference between being patient and being invisible. I told my sister I felt stupid, like I'd wasted 5 years on a family that never fully saw me as part of it. She shook her head and said something I'll never forget. Love isn't supposed to make you beg for respect. That line hit like lightning, because that's what I've been doing, hasn't it? Begging. Quietly, politely, desperately trying to earn my place in a house I already built half of. And all the while, Paul was choosing silence over support, comfort over courage, and peace over partnership. She offered to let me stay as long as I needed. No pressure, no expectations. And here's the wild part. After just one night in that spare room, I felt more seen than I had in my own home in months. That says a lot. I haven't told Paul whether I'm coming back yet. He texted me once, just said, "Hope you're okay. Let me know when you're ready to talk." Not, "I'm sorry," not, "Please come home." Just neutral, careful, safe. And that's what this whole marriage has been, hasn't it? Safe, careful, quiet, but not whole. A few days into staying with my sister, something unexpected happened. Paul's ex, Sophie's mom, reached out to me. We've always been civil. Not close, not cold, just cordial. Handoffs, school events, the occasional text about Sophie's schedule. That's it. So when I saw her name pop up on my phone, I almost didn't answer. But something in me said to pick up. Her voice was soft, hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she should even be calling. She said she'd heard I was staying with my sister, that something had happened, and she hoped I was okay. I could tell she was tiptoeing, trying to keep it neutral. I thanked her, said I just needed space, and I was about to leave it at that when she suddenly asked, "Did Sophie's notebook have my name in it too?" I was stunned. She knew. I asked her how she found out. That's when she told me. Sophie had been keeping 2 notebooks, one at Paul's, one at her place. A few days ago, she accidentally left the other one out on the kitchen table. Her mom read it. She told me it wasn't just venting, it was mean, vindictive, filled with the same kind of stuff I saw in mine. Sophie had written about how her mom was pathetic and needy and only useful for rides. She mocked her job, called her embarrassing. She'd even rated her family members in order of who she'd ditch first if given the chance. Her mom said reading it made her sick and angry, but mostly heartbroken. And here's the thing. She confronted Sophie about it immediately. Took the notebook, sat her down, and had a long, hard conversation. There were consequences, boundaries, actual parenting. She didn't make excuses. She didn't dismiss it as teenage angst. She saw it for what it was, cruelty disguised as coping. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I've been worried for a while now. She's been different since Paul remarried. Not just moody, manipulative. And he just lets it slide." I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Because for the first time, someone saw what I saw. Someone else acknowledged that Sophie's behavior wasn't just normal teenage stuff, that this wasn't about me being too sensitive or dramatic. It was about a kid testing limits and a father too passive to hold the line. Her mom told me she's getting Sophie into therapy, that she should have done it sooner, but she didn't know how bad it had gotten. Then she said, "I don't blame you if you don't come back." And that hit harder than I expected. Because up until that point, I'd been telling myself this was my failure. That if I'd just tried harder, loved louder, been better, maybe I could have earned Sophie's love. Maybe Paul would have backed me up. Maybe none of this would have happened. But here was someone who knew Sophie from the day she was born saying, "This isn't your fault." And for the first time, I believed it. Not fully. Not completely. But a little piece of that guilt started to loosen. After we hung up, I sat alone in my sister's guest room and cried all over again. Not from sadness this time, but from sheer release. From finally knowing I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't the villain in someone else's story. I was just the only one telling the truth out loud. Paul asked to meet for coffee. He said we needed to talk in person. Away from Sophie, away from my sister. Just the two of us. I agreed, partly because I still wanted to believe he'd say something that made this feel fixable, and partly because I needed to know if the man I married was still in there somewhere. We met at this little cafe we used to go to when we were dating. I remember the first time we sat there, years ago, nervous, laughing, full of possibility. This time, I walked in with a hollow feeling in my chest. He was already sitting at a booth when I arrived, nervously fidgeting with a sugar packet. He stood when he saw me, not to hug, just out of habit. That awkward, automatic politeness we fall into when we've already crossed a line we can't uncross. I sat down. No small talk. He started by saying he was sorry, but it didn't feel like an apology. He said, I didn't handle things the right way. Not, I hurt you. Not, I failed you. Just vague admissions, safe words, carefully packaged guilt with all the edges sanded down. Then he said something that honestly broke whatever was left in me. I just didn't want to make Sophie feel like she was the problem. I stared at him. I asked, and what about me? Was I supposed to feel like I was? He looked down at his coffee, stirring it like it might give him the answer. That's when I realized he hadn't come to fix this. He'd come to manage it, to smooth the edges, to make sure I wouldn't blow up his quiet, comfortable life more than I already had. I told him I spoke to Sophie's mom, that I knew this wasn't an isolated incident, that she'd found a second notebook filled with the same kind of hate, not just about me, but her too, that she had confronted Sophie, taken action, done the hard work of parenting. And do you know what Paul said? She probably just wants to make me look bad. That was it. Not shock, not concern, just ego. Like this wasn't about his daughter being deeply cruel and needing help. It was about him feeling judged. I sat there, staring at this man I'd built a life with, realizing that if I stayed, I'd always be cleaning up behind him. I'd always be the one holding things together, carrying the emotional weight, doing the work he refused to do. Not just with Sophie, but with everything. And for what? So he could keep calling himself a good dad while standing on the wreckage I had to live with? I told him I wasn't coming home. His face changed. Not panic, not sadness, just disappointment. Like he'd lost something convenient, not something cherished. He said, "So you're just giving up?" I said, "No. I stayed long after I should have left. This isn't giving up. It's waking up." I stood, grabbed my bag, and left before he could say anything else. As I stepped outside, the sky was just starting to cloud over. It was cold. Windy? I pulled my jacket tighter and walked slowly. Not because I was unsure, but because for the first time in years, every step felt like mine. It's been 2 weeks since that conversation at the cafe. I haven't seen Paul since. I haven't been back to the house. I left everything I didn't need. Clothes, kitchen stuff, even the photo frames I once thought would decorate our forever. And strangely, I don't miss any of it. Not the couch I picked out, not the smell of our hallway, not even the kitchen where I used to try and bond with a girl who wished me gone. But then, a few days ago, Sophie messaged me. It was a short text, just a few lines. She wrote, "I'm sorry. Mom told me what happened. I didn't think you'd leave. I didn't think it mattered. I was mean. I didn't hate you. I just wanted someone to blame. I get it if you don't forgive me." I read it a dozen times. And here's the truth I didn't expect. I didn't feel vindicated, or smug, or even angry. I just felt done. Not out of hate, not out of spite, but because something inside me had finally settled. Like my body knew before my brain did. This chapter is closed. I didn't respond right away. I let the message sit for 3 days, and when I finally replied, this is what I said. "Thank you for saying that. I don't hate you either. I never did. I just needed someone to choose me, and no one did. I hope therapy helps. Take care of yourself." That was it. No lectures, no demands, no bridge burned, but no path reopened either. And in that moment, I felt free. I'm filing for separation next week. I've already spoken to a lawyer. Paul knows it's coming. He hasn't tried to fight it. I think he knows, maybe for the first time, that this wasn't just a fight. It was a fracture that never healed because he never tried. I'm moving into a small apartment across town next month. It's not fancy. Just enough space for me, my books, and a few plants I've kept alive despite everything. My sister says I seem lighter. I feel it too. Some nights I still cry. Not for Paul, but for the version of me that stayed so long, hoping love would be enough to make someone choose me. But now I choose myself. Not because it's easy, but because I finally know what it feels like to matter. To me. And that's the ending I never saw coming.